as you were just saying, it takes place in so many different, just like wonderful scenic places, and I would imagine that plays into your cues as well, just like location, nature, and that whole.
Yeah, absolutely. Or it's sort of sometimes maybe almost like the ghosts coming
Right.
out of the landscape and the ghosts from the past,
Yeah.
and so I was using a lot of voice,
Hmm.
and because that sort of felt like it connected you, yeah, in a way with the landscape, and also with sort of the journey of the character.
Right. And you have a cue you were showing me before we hit
Mm.
record here that kind of embodied both the vocal and the scenic idea. And can you
Yes.
take me through that cue a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, so I did some of the recording for the Widow, so I like orchestra and a lot of the big percussion. We recorded in London, and then the show they were actually shooting most of it in South Africa, even though it's set in Democratic Republic of Congo. So
Right.
I went to join them on the shoot, and then I was working out of a studio in
Oh, amazing.
in South Africa for a while, and I recorded a lot of different percussion and stuff, but also a lot of vocal. And one of those was this singer called Mbuzo Koza, and he's got this kind of amazing falsetto
Mm.
tone that he can do, and I loved this because it's sort of not really quite what you'd expect, and you may even not quite be able to tell if this is a man or a woman, or there's it's something really ethereal about it, and I thought it worked really, it will
Yeah.
work really well. So this is I can sort of play you a bit from sort
Please.
of where it gets bigger, and then I can also maybe solo some, a couple of sections, because it's very simple cue, but I think it's really effective.
I,
Maybe I will mute the dialogue and all that.
okay.
So
And there's something about simplicity in
yeah, yeah.
music that I think
Yeah.
always makes a statement.
So I'm just going to stop it there. Now, so you have there's not many elements in this cue really, but it's sort of there is something really beautiful and about it, and the
Yeah.
vocals. At the same time, there is a kind of element of doom because you don't quite know what's going to happen, where they're going to
Yeah.
drive, and it's a dangerous place. Plus, for Georgia, the Kate Beckinsale character, it's a moment of reflection about what
Right.
happened earlier because she shot this other guy, and this was sort of news to us that she suddenly takes out the gun and all that. Right. So yes, so you have heard now the full mix of this track,
Right.
and so now I mean it's a very simple cue, but I think it's quite effective, and it sort of I think Mbuzo Koza, the singer, really made a sort of fantastic contribution. So what we, for example, recorded first is this kind of like a vocal percussion almost, which is this. So that was and I think it's sort of it's almost like the voices, from this forest there and the jungle, and then you have the solo vocal, which is or the lead vocal, which is this element here. So this was almost a kind of ad lib performance that I kind of edited together,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's sort of a few bits of percussion, but very stripped down. Some of it is I did record with Paul Clarvis, who is a great percussionist in London, and so it's got only like kind of three elements in there, but it gives you a kind of sense of darkness as well, and doom. And then we've got, the sort of, big bass synth stuff.
Right, because at this point of the show, you really have no idea what's going on with her husband.
Yeah,
And I love that foreboding and mysterious sound in this.
yeah. And then there is other, there's a bit of strings, and so and but yeah, sort of, it's, quite often it's sort of one cue maybe doing almost what different elements of one cue, maybe highlighting different kind of moods that are happening in the same scene, really.
Yeah.
And the great thing about vocals is that, you don't need many elements. You need like this two, and then have maybe the backing vocals in there, and so you don't kind of cram too much in, because we will also have sound effects and dialogue, and so and these kind of vocals are so expressive that you don't need very much, other stuff to back it up, and so you don't overload the sound. And then, it's at the cue. Then so if I continue,
Yeah.
it's sort of then it's, and then the vocals come out, and then you see something happens. There's kind of you don't really know who these guys are. There's a kind of militia that turns up, and so it goes into more kind of dark territory, and obviously it kind of has to work with the dialogue, so it can't be too busy anymore.
It's interesting to see it without the dialogue, though, because it's still, as
Yeah.
it should, telling the story.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can bring the dialogue.
Shirika ya Medical Action en Crisis. Tunakuwa kuamini sio fujo. Tunakuwa kufanya kazi ya vaccination. Tuko hapa kufanya kazi yetu. Sawa, mwende. Asante. Asante sana baba.
I mean, the version you're seeing here is not the finished. Of course, this is like the copy I had while composing the music. So it's kind of the unfinished picture, of course.